Pretty, beauty, and perfect face. These words appear everywhere in South Korea's online culture. From social media feeds to subway advertisements, appearance has become deeply tied to success, popularity, and even self-worth. For many young adults, cosmetic surgery is no longer viewed as extreme. Instead, it has become normalized, sometimes even expected. According to surveys, appearance discrimination continues to affect employment opportunities in South Korea, with over 40% of job seekers reporting discrimination based on appearance during hiring processes. Gangnam, Seoul's most famous cosmetic surgery district, now contains over 600 cosmetic clinics alone. And among younger generations, cosmetic procedures are increasingly seen as acceptable and common. But why are so many young people willing to change their appearance? This leads to the question, how does social media and institutional pressures influence young adults' perceptions of cosmetic surgery and self-worth? We interviewed several young adults about their opinions on beauty.
When you think of the ideal face in Korea, what comes to mind?
Double eyelids, of course.
Big eyes.
Small face.
Pale skin.
Although these answers come from different people, many of them are nearly identical. The same features appear repeatedly across Korean social media platforms, influencer content, beauty advertisements, and celebrity culture. Over time, these repeated images begin shaping how people define attractiveness itself. Philosopher Plato once described the idea of perfect forms, ideal versions of things that humans constantly pursue even if they can never fully attain them. Today, social media creates its own version of these perfect forms. Algorithms continuously promote faces that fit certain beauty standards. Influencers and celebrities with similar features receive more visibility, more praise, and more engagement. As users scroll through these images every day, those standards slowly begin to feel normal. But many of these images are heavily edited, filtered, or carefully curated. Despite this, the users still compare themselves against them. In the fight for the Instagram face, the creator of Instagram filters says that it is not the filters that are making this problem, but society is like this, she says. These are the values that society has and sees as beautiful, and that's why it goes viral. This and Plato's example share the same message. The societal beauty standards enforced by social media are influencing young adults to make permanent changes to their appearances. Research published in the International Journal of Environmental Research and DMC Psychology found that social media exposure is strongly associated with body dissatisfaction and appearance anxiety among adolescents and young adults. Another study published in Body Image found that appearance-focused social media use increases self-objectification and negative self-comparison. Unlike traditional media, social media is constant. Beauty standards no longer exist only in magazines or television. They now appear every time users open their phones. And because these platforms rely on likes, comments, and views, appearance becomes directly tied to validation. When attractive faces receive the most attention online, beauty begins to feel connected to popularity, success, and even self-worth. As a result, cosmetic surgery can begin to appear less like an extreme decision and more like a reasonable solution. Some influencers openly document procedures online, framing surgery as casual, routine, or even empowering. Others create face analysis content that critiques features and recommends procedures to fix them. Over time, repeated exposure to these messages can change how young people see themselves. Instead of asking, "Am I healthy?" or "Am I confident?" many begin asking, "Am I pretty enough? Would people like me more if I changed my face?" When the same face is repeatedly presented as ideal, looking ordinary can begin to feel like failure. And in that environment, insecurity is no longer created individually. It becomes social.
While social media helps shape beauty standards, South Korean institutions and social systems reinforce them by rewarding physical attractiveness in professional and social settings. Appearance becomes more than aesthetics, becomes tied to confidence, opportunity, and even self-worth. To better understand this issue, we spoke with Dr. Kwon, a sociology professor from Hankuk University.
Dr. Kwon, what do you believe is is driving the growing pressure surrounding appearance and cosmetic surgery in South Korea?
Have you ever heard of Lookism?
Lookism?
Yes. Lookism in South Korea is often referred to as 외모지상주의. Lookism is generally defined as prejudice or discrimination based on physical appearance, especially against people who do not fit societal beauty standards.
So, do you believe that Lookism contributes to the growing pressure surrounding cosmetic surgery?
Yes, I believe so. In modern South Korean society, external experience is increasingly associated with professional achievements, popularity, and interpersonal relationships. A study conducted by Park and colleagues revealed that many young adults believe that physical attractiveness increases potential for employment. And many of their survey participants indicated that cosmetic surgery would have a positive effect on employment and cited it as a motivating factor behind undergoing cosmetic procedures. This is in part driven by Lookism, which tends to associate attractiveness with positive stereotypes, while unattractiveness is linked to negative ones. These perceptions are reinforced by broader social attitudes. A poll reported by Shinhailbo found that more than 50% of Koreans seeking jobs felt that appearance affected their chances of employment. In the same survey, more than 70% of respondents agreed with the statement. I consider appearance a qualification for employment. Additionally, 67.6% of the respondents also reported that they were managing their appearance for employment purposes.
So, are these pressures shaping how young adults see themselves as well?
Yes, when appearance becomes closely tied to opportunity and social treatment, young adults may begin to internalize these standards and connect physical attractiveness with their own value and potential. In other words, appearance starts influencing not only how others perceive them, but also how they perceive themselves.
Some argue that appearance-based pressure is exaggerated. Do you think these concerns reflect real social disadvantages?
Yes, these perceptions are supported by measurable social and economic patterns. Daniel Habermas, an economist at the University of Texas, found that physically attractive individuals tend to have an income 5% higher than those who are average, while those perceived as less attractive have an income about 10% lower than those who are average. Additionally, sociologists at Harvard University and Washington University in St. Louis reported that these earnings disparities caused by perceived attractiveness are comparable to or even exceed other major forms of inequality such as race. These findings both suggest that attractiveness can have significant social and economic consequences. As a result, many young adults may feel pressure to improve their appearance in order to gain confidence, acceptance, or opportunity.
So, cosmetic surgery begins to feel less like a personal choice but something forced.
Indeed, in a society heavily influenced by Lookism, cosmetic surgery is less like a personal choice but more like a social advantage.
Dr. Kwan's insight reveals how social and institutional systems reward outward appearance, influencing how young adults view themselves and their decisions to undergo cosmetic procedures. Beyond social and institutional pressures, the cosmetic surgery industry itself also contributes to the normalization of cosmetic procedures. In South Korea, cosmetic surgery advertisements are deeply integrated into everyday life. Advertisements for cosmetic procedures can be found on social media, in subway stations, on news sites, and throughout public spaces. These advertisements often present cosmetic procedures not as an extreme medical operation, but as a form of self-improvement. Let's take a look at this advertisement. This advertisement specifically targets students who recently completed Sunung. It promotes discounted cosmetic procedures as part of a celebratory event following the exam. The phrase, "Bye Sunung, it's time to become pretty," suggests that cosmetic procedures are viewed as a natural step after an important life milestone. By marketing cosmetic procedures similarly to seasonal sales or lifestyle products, these advertisements make cosmetic surgery appear as standard. Additionally, cosmetic surgery clinics have also become deeply integrated into life, particularly in districts such as Gangnam. A simple search for plastic surgery on Google Maps reveals an overwhelming number of clinics within a small area. The constant visibility and accessibility of cosmetic procedures lowers the psychological barrier surrounding surgery and contributes to its normalization among young adults. As cosmetic enhancement becomes widespread, it begins to become a standard procedure young adults must go through to keep up with the rest of the crowd. In this environment, cosmetic surgery is increasingly presented not simply as a personal decision, but as a pathway toward becoming a more socially accepted or successful version of themselves.
To better understand how beauty standards influence self-worth and decision-making, we spoke with young adults who experienced the cosmetic surgery culture firsthand.
Would you say plastic surgery changed how you viewed yourself?
Before, I felt really insecure about my appearance. I definitely became more confident after receiving the procedure. And I think a lot of my insecurity came from constantly comparing myself to other people around me.
What influenced your decision to consider cosmetic surgery?
I decided I wanted to get a double eyelid surgery because a lot of people told me I would look better with them. So I wanted to get the surgery because I wanted to look prettier, and having good looks would also help me with my future job as a flight attendant.
Would you still have considered surgery if appearance wasn't judged as much?
Probably not. I definitely wouldn't have considered surgery if people hadn't commented on my looks so much. Why did you decide against undergoing cosmetic procedures?
I thought about plastic surgery for a long time because everywhere I looked, social media, celebrities, and people around me made it feel like changing your face was the solution to confidence. But eventually I realized the pressure itself was the problem, not necessarily my appearance. I'm not against plastic surgery or people who choose it. For some people, it genuinely makes them happier. But for me, I noticed that every time I fixed one of my insecurities in my head, another one appeared right after. So I decided I wanted to work on how I saw myself instead of constantly chasing a new version of myself. It wasn't some instant self-love moment either. I still have insecurities. I just didn't want my confidence to depend on whether I looked perfect. Choosing not to get surgery was honestly about wanting to feel comfortable being myself, not about proving anything to anyone.
Although each individual responded to beauty standards differently, all three interviews revealed a similar reality. Appearance continues to influence confidence, acceptance, and social opportunity among young adults in South Korea. Although cosmetic surgery in South Korea is commonly viewed as a personal decision, social media, competitive social culture, and institutional pressures heavily influence young adults' perceptions of beauty and self-worth, making cosmetic enhancement feel increasingly like a social expectation rather than a completely personal choice. Despite these concerns, not everyone believes cosmetic surgery culture is primarily shaped by social pressure.
I feel like young people these days care too much about appearance. Back then, people weren't this obsessed with how they look. I won't lie, of course appearance matters in our society, but nobody's forcing them to undergo cosmetic procedures. Ultimately, it's still their own choice. Honestly, I think people sometimes overcomplicate this issue. Isn't it mostly just about wanting to feel more confident or satisfied with yourself?
In my opinion, I think it's mostly a personal choice. I mean, I can feel insecure about my appearance sometimes, but that doesn't automatically mean society is forcing me to change myself. I also don't think cosmetic surgery is necessarily a bad thing. If it helps someone feel more confident, I understand why they would do it. But yeah, even if society influences people a little, I still think the final decision comes down to the individual. We would just be blaming everything on society if we say that societal pressure is the key motivation behind our decisions.
These perspectives highlight an important reality. Cosmetic surgery is ultimately a personal decision. However, personal decisions do not exist independently from the environments that shape them. Research by Judith Magner and Diana Tamir found that
Social environments can shape spontaneous thought patterns and influence how individuals perceive the world around them. Thus, in a society where appearance is closely tied to popularity, opportunity, and social treatment, beauty standards can become deeply internalized among young adults. As a result, the line between personal choice and social pressure becomes increasingly difficult to separate. No one may explicitly tell young adults who they should become. Yet, in a society where appearance influences confidence, opportunity, and acceptance, the pressure to conform can be difficult to ignore. Social media creates idealized standards. Institutions reward those who fit them, and industries normalize changing oneself to meet these standards. In this environment, beauty becomes more than personal preference. It becomes a social expectation. In a society where appearance can shape opportunity, beauty is no longer just personal. It is cultural.